Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the first of 3 webinars the Diversity and Inclusion Coach Development Team are delivering to celebrate and recognise Black History Month and the achievements of players, coaches and leaders in our game. Quick introduction from myself. My name is Lee Brown, part of that Diversity and Inclusion Coach Development Team. I'm also joined this evening by Danny Fenner. Evening, Danny.
Good evening, Lee. How are we doing this evening?
Good stuff, my friend. And also joined by Lawrence Locke.
Good evening, Lee. Good evening, Danny.
And this evening's webinar is entitled Running Through Brick Walls. And we're going to be looking at breaking down barriers and overcoming obstacles and achieving excellence to do that. Bit of a plan for this evening. I'm going to hand over to Danny in a second. And Danny's going to introduce the star of the show, Alistair. That's going to be around about 40 minutes, something along those lines. After that, there's going to be an opportunity for some questions that you might ask as coaches. So at this moment in time, we're going to see if the chat box is working. So for you as callers on this call, if you could use the chat box, if you're familiar with that function, just let us know who do you coach and also how you got into coaching. So we're really interested in not just who you coach, but also how you got into coaching. So in the chat box, if you could put that information, just so we know that you've got that and you're using that, that would be great to see your engagement, see if that's working. Fantastic. And then throughout the webinar, when Alistair is presenting, if you would like to ask a question, please put it in there. Lawrence is going to be behind the scenes, sifting out some questions to ask, some really pertinent, really killer questions to Alistair after the presentation has finished. There's generally a lag. Brilliant. I can see Ian's popped on there. Lodge Farm, he was a helper parent. Ian, I'm pretty sure you're not the only person who that applies to. So again, if I'm sure one or two of those are going to come through. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Danny. Go off the screen. Enjoy this evening, everybody. I've listened to Alistair before, and he's an unbelievable inspiration to me, and I'm sure he will with everybody on the call. So Danny, over to you.
Thank you, Lee, and thanks for the introduction. It's a proud moment for me to be introducing Alistair. Alistair was 6-7 months ago, came on a grassroots webinar, and he basically blew my breath away in his presentation, but then also his life story. I think this is going to be a fantastic webinar for coaches that are starting in the game, that are in the game, and maybe at this stage where they don't know where they want to go in coaching within the game. Alistair's going to talk about where he started as a player and where he is now, either as a player or as a coach. But in between that, it's an inspirational journey where we're talking about professional football and trials to being at the Paralympics. I'm not going to give too much away, but it's going to be a very interesting and fascinating story that Alistair's going to put on. No pressure, Alistair. But really looking forward to this, Alistair. And I'm going to hand it over to you, sir, and really looking forward to it.
Massive thank you, Danny, and a big hello to everybody here today. I'll just take over, and yeah, this is me, Alistair Patrick-Heselton. Now, you guys may know, I know you know, Danny, that I finished my career as a Paralympic England and Great Britain 7-a-side footballer down the cerebral palsy and brain injury pathway, but that's not how my life or career had ever started. I always said about myself that I was always going to be the most, or I was the most unlikely England or Great Britain Paralympian there could ever be, because I wasn't born with a disability and I wasn't even born in England. So I'm going to be taking you guys on all the ups and downs, and we'll start right from the very beginning. Okay, so that was me competing at London, and that was probably the twilight or the highlight, certainly, of my career, playing as a disability footballer. But at the very top of my world, like, you know, I was a young YTSM professional playing with Queen's Park Rangers, where I made some great friends and, like, you know, lifelong friends, as we do in sport. Had a lone time at Oldham Athletic, like, you know, where after having a horrific knee injury, I still managed to bounce back, and then went on to play in Holland with Helmenswort over in the Dutch First Division. It was only when 2006 came about, my life really changed, when I lost my best friend and became able to become a Paralympian. But I'll be telling you about that in more detail. But it was at that time I had to make some, like, you know, real life choices and decisions. I had to be very honest with myself and really, encourage myself to go on to be and embrace being a Paralympic athlete. And then got that Paralympic World Cup silver medal when I scored against Brazil. and then competed at London 2012 as in terms of bigging sporting stage. That's always been the highlight for me. And then 2017, the pinnacle was being inducted in the Football Museum Hall of Fame. So now that wraps up everything, but how about I take you through that story now? You ready for this, Danny?
I am looking forward to it, mate.
Okay, let's go. As I always said, I was going to be the most unlikely England footballer. The reason being, you know, I was born in Belgium. My friends always thought, okay, well, born in Belgium, you come to England and you become an England footballer. It was harder for me because my mum and dad sent me to grow up in Dominica with my grandma. And now it's only when you're in Dominica, you know, that's a country with a population that's smaller than all the people that you could fit in Wembley Stadium. My life changed when I got to England at 4 years old, because when I got to England at 4 years old, you realize two things when you come from the Caribbean to England. The first thing I realized was this country is freezing cold. All right. It was freezing. But then my life changed when I was sitting with my dad and we were watching a football match. I didn't realize it was a football match at the time. To me, as a 4-year-old, I just saw 10 men running around chasing a football. But then it was when a guy called John Barnes, he kicked the ball and it hit the back of the net. That moment changed my life, because me as a 4-year-old, I saw a guy that looked a bit like me. He kicked this ball and he put the ball in the back of the net. But at that moment, when the ball hit the net, all his friends, they just chased him. And everyone in the crowd, and when we say a crowd, there's more people in that crowd there that day than were living in the whole country that I came from. So to me, it was like this guy has just erupted the whole world, and all his friends chased him. They all jumped on him, high-fived him, hugged him. I said, Dad, what are they doing, Dad? He said, oh, Alistair, they're playing football. And I said, well, Dad, my dad was a barrister and he never did that. So I said, Dad, but what's their job if that's what they're doing now? And he said, Alistair, no, that's their job. And you know what? I looked at John Barnes' face again and he was just smiling away. I said there and then to my dad, you know what? I want to be like them when I'm older. And he laughed, as all parents will. And he said, Alistair, do you know what? You can. It's going to be the hardest thing you ever do. And all you have to make sure you do is always believe in yourself. I said, do you know what, Dad? I'm definitely going to do that. I'll definitely be able to do it. And then we always talk about the friends that we make with sport and football, certainly. And it was at 6 years old, I met my best friend, a guy called Simon Patterson. And just like me, he wanted to go on to become a professional footballer as well. Now, Simon and I, we were at that young age, we were really prepared to go through all the ups and downs, you know. But the first thing we had realized was every other boy in our school wanted to be a footballer. And I was sitting with Simon one day and I was like, Simon, do you know what can we do to make sure we're going to be better than everybody else? And we came up with a simple plan. We just said, let's concentrate on every kick that we do. We said, if we can concentrate on every kick we do, and then like you make every kick you do better than the last one, then you add up all those good kicks, like, you know, that means you're going to be good enough to play football when you get older. And that made perfect sense to the 2 6-year-olds. So we shook hands and we said, that's what we were going to do. And we really lived that dream together, because as youngsters, like, you know, going to school, we were playing for the school teams together, ended up playing for the borough together, the county together. And we were really on that circuit where we were determined to be the best footballers that we could be. Now, this picture here, you can see me playing for, I always say that was the day I became a professional, because that was the day I promised myself, do you know what? I'm going to be the very best footballer that I can be. I'm going to give myself the best chance. Now, the very first comment that I saw in the chat that had come up earlier, was someone said they were just helping out at their under-9s team.
Yeah,
do you know what? Where would I be without someone like you? That's all I can say, because if you look at the two coaches there on the sideline, that was Dave and Russell. Now, they were parents of 2 players in the side, and without coaches like them, I would never have been here. So if you're helping out at your child's team, please keep doing that, because you are actually breeding stars of the future. Now, as I was getting older, at 13 years old, I got before we even got, I forgot to tell these guys, I scored 64 goals in that season as well, in 28 games, you know, which was great. And what was really great about that was my friends, we replicated everything we'd see on TV. Every time I scored a goal, wow, everyone would chase me. They'd jump on me, high-five me, hug me. We'd make each other feel like we were young footballers. So I know you're seeing us in that park there, but to us as kids, that was our Wembley Stadium, you know, and our coaches were giving us that environment all the time. And that's what kept us all engaged in it. Now, as we always talk about the ups and downs, this was a real high for me. I'd say my low was as I was getting a little bit older, going towards high school. Like, you know, my parents sent me to a private school because they'd wanted me to go down the academic route. Now, all my heroes, John Barnes right there, R9 Ronaldo, and Marco van Basten. Now, I wanted to be like all of those footballers. My mum would always say to me, Alistair, do you know what? If you are going to be a good footballer, there's two things that you're going to have to do because I'll take you all over the country. I was like, Mum, what is it I've got to do? She said, the first one and the most important one, not just in football, but everything you do with your whole life. I'm like, okay, Mum, what is it? She said, make sure you enjoy it. I thought, okay, wow, I'm always going to enjoy it because with my friends right here, we're running around, having a great time, doing what we see on TV. And I said, okay, Mum, what's the other thing? She said, well, you're going to have to try and be good at school, okay? Like, apply yourself to your academics, and that's going to really help you with football too. I can never really understand what she meant by that because why are footballers good at school, you know? But what she was actually trying to teach me was it was a way of life, a way of living your life, being the best that you can be for every moment of your time. So you don't turn off being good and you don't turn it on. You're just always good. So the moment you wake up in the morning, give life your very best. So go to school, give it that 100%, and do the same with every moment. It's only when I heard John Barnes, Ronaldo, and Marco van Basten all say the same things. They said focus was the key that they had. If they could hold their attention on task, they could do anything they wanted. And I wanted to be just like those guys there. So I really tried my best to replicate that by the way I applied myself in school. And it wasn't just to be good in school, but it was to be good anywhere I was. So spin on. When I got to high school, I've been scouted by Wycombe Wanderers. This is when I just before I had signed my pro contract with Queen's Park Rangers. Now, when I talk about being the best that we can be, it was that last year of high school where I was playing for Wycombe Wanderers. Simon and I both on the same side, and we got to a national final against QPR. And we gave it everything to win that game because if we had, we'd have got our young YTS contracts, which is every young boy's dream going on to become a 16-year-old. You want to be a YTS. But we lost the game 3-2. And okay, to me, my world just fell apart. That's a real downer. After the game, though, there was a Watford scout there that spoke with Simon and asked him to speak to his parents, and who knows, he might have a future there. I was quite disappointed. But there was a guy called Roger Stewart. Okay, he was at QPR and he was their chief scout. He said, Alistair, like, you know, when you get home, give this to your dad, ask him to give me a call. You should have seen my face because, Danny, you can imagine, I've come bursting through the door and I'm like, Dad, you got to phone this guy. My dad was determined he wasn't going to do it. He said he would only do it if I passed my GCSEs.
Wow.
But the next bit really twisted because I shook hands with my dad. I said, Dad, okay, I'll pass my GCSEs and then you promise you'll phone this guy. I shook hands. But my dad gave me all the power. He said, Alistair, you're taking 9 subjects. How many do you want to pass? That's not when I thought about it. I said, well, if I'm taking 9, why would I want to pass anything less than 9? So I said, Dad, do you know what? I'm going to pass 9. And he looked at me, he said, seriously? I said, Dad, I'm going to pass 9. And from that moment, it was almost like a switch had flicked because I was 100% determined and I had this whole new enthusiasm for school and just everything that I was doing. Not to be the best academically, but because there was something even greater for me. I always remember always early to school, just like I would be to football, you know, and I was there and I was doing everything, and results day came round and I got all 9 of my GCSEs and I was on top of the world. But not because I was going to be the next scientist, but purely because my dad was going to phone this guy. Dad got home, big hugs and everything else, and my dad said, Alistair, do you know what? One thing about sport is it doesn't always go according to plan. So don't be too disappointed if it doesn't happen. As you guys will see there, my dad made the call and QPR made many calls back and forth and faxes in those days with Wycombe Wanderers, and the dream did come true. And wow, to be a professional footballer, young professional in those days, all dreams came true. You're living the life that you read about, that you've been seeing on TV for so long. But then you also see how habits used to follow you around, because it'd be one day of being a professional footballer I used to hate. And for me, it was that Christmas day, because ever since 16 years old, never had Christmas with my family. So we'd have to be at training. And I used to hate leaving my family on Christmas morning. You get there and you go through it. And you could never realize why you're doing it. The real reason you're doing it is because there's a game on Boxing Day. I always remember, okay, I had horrible training on Christmas Day, just went through the motions, didn't do anything correctly. And that was the same attitude and the same habit I took with the match on Boxing Day. Unfortunately, we were playing against Nottingham Forest. Pass came into me. I didn't do the one thing you should always do first, which is check your shoulder. So any person any footballer you're coaching, tell them to check their shoulder. I didn't check the shoulder. I just turned around and bam, Jermaine Jenas,
Wow.
absolutely like a steam train, absolutely smashed me. And it's only when I think back on it, like, why did that happen? Was it because I didn't check my shoulder? No, it was because I was allowed to identify with a bad habit. The day before, no one had pulled me up on it, and I was allowed to fall into that rut. Like, I never did that again. Every Christmas day, I was training twice a day. But not just every Christmas day. Every day, I started training twice a day. And just just it correlated. Life got so much better. But then we had some problems because the first team, QPR, always in relegation battles and stuff. They got relegated, and unfortunately, I was told, Alistair, do you know what? We can't afford to keep paying you. You're very young. You haven't played in the first team yet, and you're on a good contract. So I've got 3 choices. 1, you can go on a free transfer. 2, you can find a team to go on loan, and they'll take over your wages. Or 3, you get a payout, but then you're not a footballer anymore. And I was 18 going on 19 at that time, and how do you cope if you're not a footballer anymore? Luckily for me, though, my roller coaster went back up because Ian Dowie, he left QPR and he signed at Oldham Athletic as a reserve manager there, and he got me on loan, put me on loan for 12 months, and I was like, wow, look at that, all my prayers have been answered. So I left mum and dad in London and said, I'm going up to Manchester to live with a new family. Mum said, only go if you're going to enjoy it. What a time at Oldham I had, a fantastic time. I was being coached by Tony Fiddleskirk there, and it was fantastic. But we always know we've got problems as footballers, and I got that horrendous knee injury playing against Shrewsbury where I tore my cruciate ligament, medial ligament, and cartilage came off the bone. Now the medical term for that is an unhappy triad. I don't know about one of those, but I was an unhappy Englishman at the time, I'll never forget because I was there shivering cold, and I was thinking, you know what, things can't get any worse. Am I ever going to play football ever again? But then they got worse because I looked at my leg and I thought, am I ever going to walk again? What does this mean? Am I going to need to have an amputation? Then you get stretchered off. 2 days later, they scan it when all the swelling's gone. They give you the bad news, which is, Alistair, you've been here. You're supposed to be here for 12 months, but you've been here for a month already. And you won't play for another 10 months. And then you think, wow, we've only got 1 month to try and get fit and get back in the side. What are the chances of that? Return back to England, back to London, because I was still being paid by QPR at the time, which was decent. But then a new manager came in. He told me, Alistair, do you know what? Those 3 choices you had, it's just one option now, and there's a payout. You're not getting the extension in your contract. Wow, it's a short career. I'm 21. How's that happened? And even though it felt devastating as my contract ended at QPR, I knew I had to go on with my life. I had to keep moving forward. The first thing that I could do was get knowledge, find out about the injury. Could it get better? Went through the operation and I was rehabbing very well and everything was good. But then I went on to become I played semi-pro and I've done the semi-pro circuits. I bounced back to go and play in Holland with Helmond Sport, which was great.
Excellent.
But it was coming back to England where life really changed. Because I always skim over that bit in Holland because I wasn't truly happy out there. But then when I came back to England and Simon, my best mate, who'd been playing under Gianluca Vialli at Watford, he called me and he's like, Alistair, there's an opportunity for us to play at Wingate and Finchley, which was David Pleat's semi-pro team. He said, both of us to play up front in the Ryman Division 2. I thought, wow, me and my best mate, we're going to do this. So both signed for Wingate and Finchley in 2006. And as you'll see it there, it was that September 2006 when my life really, really changed. And all my dreams at the time I thought were completely shattered because Simon had that massive car crash and I was in the passenger seat next to him. And I had a friend in the back of the car. And a friend in the back of the car went out the back window, as you know, but survived, thankfully. And then Simon and I, we both went through the windscreen. Now, I was 2 6-year-olds who were only 3.5 feet, but then as I was 23, Simon was 24, he was 6'5", and he hit his head on the frame of the car and he broke his neck and he died at the scene. Certainly when I talk about losses, that's the biggest loss. And I sometimes say that was maybe the only loss that I had because me, myself, and going through the windscreen, I dislocated my hips on the dashboard, went through, shoulder came out of the socket, got various broken forearms and things like that. But the compounded press fractured skull, which was what really, really changed everything, because it was traumatic brain injury, which really changed my life and put me in that 3-month coma. One thing that did save my life was the fact I hit my head so hard, because when the ambulance found me, my head was open and brain was hemorrhaging, and because the head was open, it let all the blood out, which meant they could get me back to hospital, with enough oxygen in the brain, which was good. But then when you get there, mum and dad devastated, or family devastated when they found out the news, and they had to really hang on for a long haul, because I was in that coma for 3 months, and for 3 months every day they'd take that trip from Harrow on the Hill to Charing Cross just to see me laying there. And it's 1 month into the coma, they got told, well, Alistair, he might never wake up, so one of you might have to actually think about retiring to look after Alistair. But you won't believe, Danny, as they told my parents I might never be able to talk again. Can you imagine me not talking?
No, I couldn't, to be fair.
and then it was at 2 months, they got another call, and because I was on life support machine, they actually said to my parents, I haven't responded to any treatment, and they wanted to think about turning the machines off, or they would actually support them in that. And my mum and dad were like, no, we're not going to do that at all. Alistair wouldn't give up, so we won't. And they said, absolutely fine. And then same journey again for 3 months, and they said, oh, Alistair's brain's responded to some treatment. We might try and wake him up. And you can imagine, family are buzzing. And then they said, Alistair's probably going to be very different when he wakes up. And I'll always remember, because when I came round, I was middle of the night all by myself, and they were 100% correct. I was very different. But I saw my reflection. Can you imagine not going anywhere for 3 months? I woke up, had an afro like one of the Jackson 5. I'm telling you, it was bad. It was bad, But then a conversation I had with the doctor. The doctor, he came to see me. He was doing all the talking. And what he said really changed my life, because he said, Alistair, you get 5 years. He said, get 5 years of any improvement, but then after 5 years is wherever you get to is where you're going to stay. So I just heard him say, do you know what? Well, I can get 2 choices. You can do this for 5 years, and everyone will give me anything that I want. But then in 5 years' time, I'm still going to be in that same place doing that same thing. That's no way to live. And no, I didn't feel like that was any way for me to live. So I need to explore myself even more. So I'm going to try moving and try walking. And that was initially one of the hardest things that I'd ever done. And it was almost, I had to be very honest in myself that, do you know what? It's not going to be easy. All the things I did naturally aren't going to be easy, but that's what excited me so much, because it was like another match for me. I was going to have the desire all over again, have to believe in myself and be as tough as I could all over again. I remember taking those steps and walking and falling over and getting back up, and every single day I did it. I was determined I was going to do it better and better. My face was paralyzed down the left-hand side, so every day I made sure I went to speech therapy, but I wouldn't just get a lift there. I'd make sure I walked there. And I'd have to leave 2 hours early if I could, and I'd do whatever it took, and I'd get myself there, and I did do that. But every day I did it, I felt like I was getting so much better. I'd been told that, I wouldn't play football again because I had the plate and the screw in my head, but it took 4 years of me doing those walks to speech therapy and going to a gym to try and get better. And I got told I could play football again for the 7-a-side team for brain injury and cerebral palsy. Now that terrified me, because I hadn't played football in 4 years. I was very scared, to represent England potentially. But then Lyndon Lynch, the manager of this team at the time, he said, Alistair, what would you have done when you were younger? Do you know what? The one thing that we can all do? I was just give it a go. I said, do you know what? Okay, I'll give it a go. I asked him, Lyndon, have we got any friendlies coming up? He said, we've got some matches. See, but he said that well. He didn't say friendlies. So he said, we've got some matches. He said, bring a passport. Turn up at Lillyshaw. We went through a little training session. What's the passport for, Lyndon? We got flown out to Holland, and it was for the CP Israel World Championships, just like that. And I was standing there thinking, hang on a minute, this is a little bit much. And you going to say something, Danny?
Yeah, I'm just going to hold you there, because, again, this is the second time I've heard this story, and I still can't believe, the grit, the determination, and the resilience that you've shown. The question that I'd like to ask you, Alistair, is, we might have got some coaches that are on this call right now who have been through some ups and they've got some challenges in their lives. And listening to you, and you're talking about the loan spell from QPR going up to Holdham, which, you know, traveling from London to Manchester, different culture, a long way to go, being released, the situation of going to Holland and not liking it, the accident itself, and then the doctor saying to you, look, you've got this 5-year span, wherever you could get to in that 5 years is where you're going to be. What was your why to get to where you are now, playing in that tournament in Holland? What resilience did you have to show, and what was your why?
Yeah, that's a great question, because people always ask me about resilience because they actually think I've been very resilient. And I always say, no, do you know what? All along my life, from everything that you'd have heard from that 6-year-old, 4-year-old even, I've had a goal, like, you know, and for me, it's continuously being able to goal set, like, you know. So if I always find being resilient just comes with the territory of the goal that you want. So once I say I want something, I'm going to get it. And it was the doctor saying to me I had those 5 years. That's the best thing he could have said, because then I knew, okay, well, in 5 years, that's what I'm going to need to be doing, moving around, because I don't want to be here and I don't want this for myself. So that would mean maybe in 1 year, I need to be that good, but then we can break it down further. So what could I do in 1 week? Well, what could I do within each day that I've got, you know? Because nothing is promised to us. But one thing we can do is promise ourselves that we'll do our best all the time. That's all I've ever wanted to do.
Fantastic. So goal setting could be a top tip for a coach. So if you've got a goal and you want to work at a certain level of football, or you want to get a certain qualification, have that goal setting. And then what kind of other steps? Like, obviously yours was determination, and you seem like you've got some inner strength in you to get through that. What about if, you know, my confidence has been knocked a little bit? What other advice would you be able to give?
Again, confidence comes with the experience. I think it's one of these things, when we can continually do something, you get, like, you know, very used to it, very accustomed to it. Now, with a goal, we've always got our main goal. We know that that's the end of the distance where you want to get to, but to get to that main goal, you need your process goal. So, for example, an example is, if I wanted to play in a football tournament in the year, well, I know I need to be doing so many training sessions within a day. And so we can always work backwards to, like, you know, almost right down to the minute that we're living in, you know, of what we should be doing with that time. And confidence is, so many people can knock your confidence, people can grow your confidence. I always say, surround yourself with people that help you grow, like, you know.
Fantastic. Thank you, Alistair.
Yeah, do you want me to continue?
Yeah, carry on with Holland, that tournament.
Yeah, because as you can see, this was my England debut. So after being told potentially may never walk again, making that debut against South Korea, and the real crack on this one was I scored our first goal. And it was that moment which changed everything all over again, because as soon as the ball hit the back of the net, I saw teammates just chase me, just like they used to as a kid, all over again, like, you know, and all chasing me, jumping on me, high-fiving, hugging. And I was part of a team again. I was part of something where we were all working towards the same goal. And there's that word again, that same goal, that we were all going to try to win that tournament, you know? But then I wasn't happy with being there. I needed a new goal. And my goal at the time was, I wanted to be the best disability footballer there was. So I said to the manager, Lyndon, what's the biggest thing that I can do? Like, you know, the biggest. He said, oh, Alistair, it's the Paralympics. I thought, hang on, well, London 2012 is coming up. And I got scared, because even when we're doing well, like, you know, we can get very nervous and very scared. And I said, actually, maybe that's not for me. Too many eyes. And he said, well, Alistair, why wouldn't you want to do that? Like, you know, there's people here, as the FA, we'd want to support you. People around you want to support you. And then I got introduced to someone that wanted to work with me and help me. And it was David Beckham. Now, we've got some mutual friends. Oh, yeah, and we had a good couple of laughs about them, because I won't say what we were saying about Crouchy, but it was all good fun. And do you know what? I was spending some time with him. He's like, Alistair, you're going to be on the Jaguar program, and I'm a patron. Anything you need, just give me a shout. And I was with him one day, and again, I was like, Dave, you're the biggest star we've ever had. Like, you know, but what's been your secret? When you play football, what's your secret? And I thought he was going to tell me he maybe gets in an hour earlier or this and that. But he gave me his answer, and I just froze. And I just stopped. I was scratching my head, and he's laughing. He's like, Alistair, what's wrong? I was like, Dave, you've just told me the same thing my mum told me when I was 6 years old. And he laughed again. He's like, Alistair, that's the only reason. He says, the day I stop enjoying doing something is the day, like, I'll stop doing it. So make sure you have as much fun as you can. Otherwise, what's the point? I thought, do you know what? That's what this is about. Like, we can spend so much time in our lives being scared or worried about things. I'm not going to let that come into my football world. That's my release from everything. And I thought, I'm going to train as hard as I can every day when I've got to go and like throw up till I finish if I have to. I'm going to train exactly like I did when I was a mainstream footballer. Then I stopped. I thought, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to train harder than when I was a mainstream footballer because I can. And then, every morning when I've got this video here, and I'll let it play first, but then you'll see a really bad selfie of me, and I'll tell you exactly what I was thinking at that time. So
Before we
play, going to start running now.
Before we play the video, Alistair, this is a question that I'd just like to ask you. So we've had this amazing journey of playing at QPR and now playing for the England national team in the Paralympics. What was the transition like playing in mainstream football to then go and play in disability football? And the second part of that question is, did you see it as a step up or a step down? That could be a bit controversial, but that's a question I'm going to throw at you, that two-part question.
You know what? That's a brilliant question, and thank you for asking me that, because when Lyndon had first called me and he said, Alistair, do you know what? We believe you'd be able to qualify to play as a Paralympic footballer or as a disability footballer. I said to him, Lyndon, no, I don't think I'll, because through my recovery, I was doing everything I could to be not classed as having a disability. So I said, no, Lyndon, that can't be me. I think you've got the wrong guy. He said, Alistair, we'll go on the website and check this out. And I looked and I inquired a bit about it. And do you know what? I didn't see anyone that looked like me. I didn't see any John Barneses or anything, or even people physically that looked like myself.
Yeah.
But then I came to understand my brain injury a bit more, and then actually researched it a bit more. And I thought, actually, maybe I could do this. But then I thought, no, but I just still, no one's going to call me a disability footballer. But then when I took that mindset into training, I was always hitting a brick wall. Okay. When I was taking that mindset into the outside world or my life, I was always hitting a brick wall. And do you know what? It's only when I said, do you know what? I am a disability footballer. I do have a disability. Do you know what? I will go in and do it this way because that's who I am now. And it was never about, trying to get the old me. Someone said to me, it's not about the old you, it's about creating the new you and who you want to be. I thought, do you know what? It's only once I just cut that tie of me thinking that I wasn't someone with a disability, my progress went through the roof. But then it's only when I started getting engaged in seven-a-side football that my recovery took a whole new spin, because I thought I'd recovered. That was only the tip of the iceberg, because then I felt myself progressing even more and getting better and better. And for me, myself, there's me initially thinking it was a step down. But then I'd have to ask myself, well, if it was a step down, why am I absolutely shattered on the floor right now? I'm not strong enough. And the one thing that did save me was bringing that sort of professional elite mindset to it from beforehand, because I don't think I would have been able to rock up as an everyday person and without giving anything to be there.
Do you know what I get from that answer, Alistair? It's someone who's always worked in mainstream coaching as a coach, that, do you know what? I could challenge myself and maybe go into disability football, because things will look a bit different and the challenges will be there. But with the experience that I've got in mainstream football, maybe I could offer something into disability football. And obviously there will be ups and downs with it in terms of trying to get to grips with, language and the way to do things. But that would probably make me a better person and maybe a better coach as well.
100%. I think you just got it at the end where you said a better coach. I was going to ask you, how do you judge yourself as a coach? I would say coaches make other people better. So I think if your skill set and your mindset is there to make players better and people better, then it's 100% for you to make that step, because you can't say you're a good coach if you wouldn't share that, So
fantastic.
And I think not only will you make other people better, you'll see what the players are doing, and you'll see how much better they make you as well.
Thank you, Alistair.
No, so hopefully we can get this played now. Yeah, so that was me there. Like, just been selected like for Great Britain. You're walking out at an opening ceremony. You've got 90,000 people there, and that big smile on my face. You know what? It wasn't actually smiling because I was there with all those people. I was actually smiling because I was thinking to myself at that time, 6 years ago, a doctor told me I might never walk again. Imagine I had taken choice number one of doing that. I'd have never been able to go out there to do that. And I thought, do you know what? All those days, the cold Christmas days when I would get up and I would be jogging, trying to walk, trying to move, I'd fall over and get back up. That's what got me there, nothing else. And that's why you saw that big smile on my face there. But it wasn't just about opening ceremonies, because that's the glamorous bit, the easy bit that I don't really care too much for. It's the competition side of things, and that's what really makes me tick. And that's why I started playing football as that infant, and that was against the Ukraine and celebrating against the USA. And friends always have asked me, Alistair, why do you always celebrate like that when you're just gazing out? For me, that's because I'm always looking to the future, because we can be happy with what we just did, but what could we continue to do? What can we do for someone else? And that's generally the mindset that I've got. Let's look ahead. What can I do to make myself better or make someone else better? And then that journey in sport, the friends that we get to make. Wow, Richard Whitehead runs marathons almost weekly, this guy. Double amputee Paralympic world record holder. We've got Alex Danson, who also suffered a traumatic brain injury, but she got the bronze medal at London with the hockey team, and then the gold medal at Rio. And Anna Bentley, an Olympic fencer. And I always flick on next to this slide because this was after competing for England and Great Britain, scoring against Argentina at the Paralympics and everything else. After going to intercontinental championships, winning the Quad Nations. Just giving the sport my all, my very best. And by that, I mean, I'd be still going to bed, 5 o'clock in the afternoon before a match, these sorts of things. And Alistair, why did you do it all? And it seems that it was recognized. Everything that I did was recognized by the Football Museum, the National Football Museum, when I was 2017 inducted in the Hall of Fame alongside Steven Gerrard. And I got the Football for All award. And for me, I always say, me receiving the trophy, even though that looks quite important there, that's not important to me at all. Look at the smile on the side of my face. That's the only important thing about that picture, And that's how, when I look back on my career and everything that I've given of myself, that's how much I've enjoyed doing it. And I think when we talk about goals, that's a goal. I say find something that can make you smile that much, and I think resilience will follow you. If there's anything that will make you smile that much, resilience will follow you, and that's all I've always tried to do. And that's what I'll continue to try and do. I'm just so happy it was recognized,
Brilliant.
Then beyond that, I always say, as I wrap up here, for me this picture is always very important because of where it is. And I know with any dream, any goal we've got, no matter what it is we want to do in life, as a footballer, that's where we plan and where we practice, and it's a training ground. Where are we? Wherever we go, we're always training, and that's where we make our dreams come true. So every day that you've got in your training environment, make it a 10 out of 10 day if you can, and keep smiling with it.
Brilliant.
Thank you
Brilliant,
for listening, everyone.
No, thank you so much for that. I've just got a couple of questions to add on to your presentation. You spoke about Lyndon Lynch, who's now got a room, or has got a room down at St George's Park, and John Barnes.
Mm-hmm.
How important was it to have two black role models like those two in your career?
Well, we always say chronology. To have John Barnes there was enormous, because that's the first time as a young kid I'd ever seen this game football. And then I'd just come from Dominica to England, and I didn't see anyone else that looked like me. But then I saw someone that looks like me doing something that's making so many people happy. Then it truly made me believe, because I always remember we'd go into the school playground and everyone would be Chris Waddle or Gary Lineker. Well, one person I could be, I know it's John Barnes. And then, so I can be included in this game because I can be John Barnes, because he's just as good as everyone else. And that was massive to me. And to see Lyndon having his change room at St George's, and he again reignited my career. Wow, massive, massive influence and inspiration, because he's someone at the very top of the sport. And hey, they look like me. Well, I can identify with some of their traits. It's enormous.
Fantastic. I'm going to bring Lee in a minute, but because I'm still buzzing from your presentation, I've got a couple more questions that I want to talk to you about your presentation. And the second bit is just linking it in a bit of the work that myself and the D&I team do for the FA, is that we talk to a lot of coaches that talk about other people and other people getting on in their coaching journeys and they're not. Now, you were in a position where you was at a professional football club, and many of the players that you played with or played against had a professional career at a Premiership or Championship football club, or just a professional football career. Now, do you have any thoughts and feelings towards them? Do you feel that that they maybe have had a better career than you? Or, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but is there anything there that you resent the players that you played with or played against?
Yeah, no, like I said, I played against them with top players, like, from the Jermaine Defoe's to, like, Ashley Coles. I'm just trying to think of all the names now, like, certainly the Steve Sidwells, like, and I honestly don't resent anything, because how can I, like, our lives are our lives, and I think what's meant to be for me is for me. And, or like, one thing I can say, do you know what? When you say had a better career than me, how many of them, we could almost rack them off, how many of them are in the Hall of Fame? Show me your trophy, like, that's the bottom line, because we sometimes we, like, put success, we don't really, what is success, like, what does it feel to be successful? And for me, I think in life I've actually won, because my mountain was to recover from what was a life-changing situation. And I think I always look back on my life and my career and think, do you know what? I can't lose, because I gave it the best with every single day that I had. And that is true success.
Fantastic. Brilliant stuff there. And I think just relating it to the coaches that are on the call and the coaches that might be listening to this on a recording, is that, you can only control your controllables. So whatever you've got in front of you, that's all you can go and control. Whatever other people are doing in their careers and how they got there, that's their journey. Your journey, you can the only one that can control it. And I think you've definitely demonstrated it in your presentation and in your life as a outstanding footballer and an outstanding career.
No,
brilliant stuff. My time has come to an end a little bit, Alistair. I will jump in a bit, but I just want to bring in Lawrence Locke, who has got a few killer questions that have come from the chat box that he's going to throw at you. Is that okay?
Yeah, please, of course it is.
Thanks, Danny. Alistair,
you're on mute. I can't hear you very well.
I can.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah.
I still can't hear Lawrence.
Oh, no. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Danny.
Just can't hear Lawrence. Okay. But I can hear Lawrence. Okay. Not to worry. Lee, was there any questions that were in the chat box that we might be able to?
Yeah, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that you can hear me, Alistair. Are we good? Yeah, we've got a little nod of a head. You good?
You can uncross your fingers, Lee. I can hear you.
Perfect. I mean, there was a question I had, and hopefully Lawrence will come on in a second. I'm interested around. So we talk about players. What coach got the best tune out of you as a player, and why did they get that out of you? So I'm just looking at the qualities of a coach and what qualities are important to you. Who got the best tune out of you as a coach, and why? And I think the reason I'm asking this, I think for the coaches on the call, it's really important to recognise some of the thought processes that players might go through and some of the qualities that they might need from coaches.
Yeah, sure. No, for me, Gary Waddock. Okay, he was just a real good guy. So I'm still his friend now, so we still talk. Like, Gary and I, and he knew when to, like, really dig in and have a go at me, but at the same time, he knew when to put his arm around me, and I think he could emotionally read me very well, so he understood. But at the same time, Ian, there's me saying this, Ian Dowie, we always got an eye. I always admired him as a coach because, for example, a pre-season when you're nearly dying and things like that, but he'd make sure he was doing it with you. And he's a real coach that led by example. No matter what, he'd never ask us to do anything that he wouldn't do, even through his own demos. Like, if he's asking us to, like, ping a pass, take it on a half turn, set it off, sprint, and he'd be doing it with us there as well. So what a coach he was, and that's something that I'll always respect.
Yeah, good stuff. Lars, are you back in?
Alistair, can you hear me now?
Still struggling, I think. Yeah, Lawrence, just it doesn't matter. Don't panic. Paul has asked a question. I'll jump in. So I'm looking at the level of support you got as a coach from the England CP team and compared that to when you were in the professional, your kind of professional career, if you like. What were the differences, if any?
You just went quiet. Yeah, I heard the first bit of that level of support
mate.
I got from the England CP team.
Yeah, so how does that compare to when you were in the professional game?
You still there, Danny? Did you hear that?
Yeah, I could hear it. Yeah,
We've got some real technical problems.
Repeat that for me.
it's probably I'll probably start asking you some questions then.
Okay, sure. Sorry about that, Lee.
Yeah, I think that'd be the case. Sorry, I did tell everyone that I had the best internet, paying my extra £2 a month. I won't tell you the provider though.
Certainly do.
So there's a couple of questions here. Paul Harrison's on the call, and he mentions about how did the level of coaching and support you received at the England CP team compared to maybe the coaching that you received in mainstream football?
Okay, very interesting, because I think it's almost to the extent where I feel it was elite level. It was elite level. However, I felt there was the sort of basics were often missed out. Now, I don't know if, for example, I talk about that look over the shoulder and things like that, and it seems as though players, it wasn't sort of drummed in as rigorously as it should have been. I know obviously we're adults and we're like, the senior squad. However, I don't ever really remember anyone actually going through the finer details of things as much. The levels of repetition maybe weren't quite as good, because obviously there are certain things that we have to be very aware of in terms of bodies and what people can be doing, and even my own mental capacity to retain things. Well, do you know what I did love was we had to drop all the barriers, and in part I actually really tried to drive this myself, which was we wouldn't slide tackle in training. One of the reasons being people with cerebral palsy or having cerebral palsy can make you more susceptible to injuries and things like that. However, I was always of the opinion, well, how can we actually ask us to slide tackle in the match if we don't do it in training? It's only when that question went back to the players, it wasn't even a question. We just said, okay, we can slide tackle in training. People were just getting absolutely slammed, and no one got injured, no one gets injured. We just get up and carry on. And I think at certain times we call them cotton gloves, but sometimes we just have to go at it as normal. And I've always thought we just attack things at that mainstream standard, and it's absolutely fine.
Brilliant. Thanks for answering that. Got another question here from a gentleman, Steve Smithies. He's a colleague of ours and works over in Cheshire. Really inspiring story. And Alistair, what challenges or things do you want to do next?
What do I want to do next? Well, as you know, my best friend Simon died in 2006, and he had an older brother, Jeremy. Now, Jeremy had his own battles in his life and everything else, and this September just gone, this marked 15 years, and it was a bit of a tricky 15 years for me, because August just gone, Jeremy's Simon's older brother, he'd always struggled with Simon's death and everything else, and he actually passed away or took his own life. And on Simon's 15th anniversary of Simon's death, we were actually there burying Jeremy next to him. And I have actually got with a group called Sport Against Suicide, which is looking at how we can prevent suicide or talk about suicide, and the mental, the mental situations that people go through before it to actually wanting to take their own life. So I'm now working with Sport Against Suicide and doing my best to actually try and give back and help people, in that situation.
So somewhat like an ambassador role, is that?
Like an ambassador role, yeah.
Brilliant.
I'm in the inclusion lead.
Make sure you give us the details in regards to that, and we'll add it to this presentation as well for people that might be going through that kind of situation at this present time. So thank you for that. Nimesh has got a question. Nimesh has got a question, and it's a little bit about the resilience question that I asked at the beginning. But Nimesh says, Alistair, it's clear that you've shown massive amounts of resilience to bounce back time after time. What strategies would you recommend for players and coaches who find themselves struggling and can't find a way to move forwards in sport and life? What a great question that is. So you talked about that goal setting. Is there any other practical tips that you can elaborate on to give to the coaches that are on the call?
Yeah. Do you know what? Write your goals down. You have to be writing them down. Try and put dates on them as well. So you can, when goals set, you know what? We're writing a contract with ourselves. We have to be accountable to ourselves. So you write your goals down, put some dates. When would you like to achieve it by? But then you think of the processes. So what would you have to do to actually, what are the small things you'd have to do to get to that goal? And it's only when you get all those ticks, then you think, oh, I'm doing this now. Well, yes, I look back, I've got all those ticks. That's why you've actually got there, and break your processes down. And at the same time, one other thing that's always very important is have a release from that, because you have to have, whether it's a hobby or a time release, it might just be a conversation with someone that you like, have that release.
Fantastic. I think with the D&I officers that are scattered across the country working with the Black and Asian coaches, we've been doing a lot of development action plans. So that could be that kind of process and that goal setting that you're talking about. And in terms of hobbies, I know Lee Brown loves a game of golf. Don't you, Lee? Loves a game of golf. I've got one last question, Lee and Alistair. And this has come from Stuart Ropen. Stuart has talked about his son is, I believe this is how you say it, is scoliosis and loves football. And at some point, he may have to stop playing mainstream football, which that's a shame. Have you came across players with the same condition? And I hope he can always play football until he can't. Or if you've not come across players with the same condition, what would you say to those players that want to stay into mainstream football?
The one thing that we have to do is we listen to our bodies, because certainly I'd always been of the opinion, I can go back to play football as a mainstream player. But then I thought, right, well, first of all, I can't get insured because of the brain injury and could never head a ball again and these sorts of things. But playing mainstream football, that was never actually, or I say that became secondary. What became primary for me was just doing the best that I could do. So when people said to me, okay, Alistair, well, you've got a disability. Well, then in that case, I'll do the best thing that someone with a disability can do. And if that means represent my country, well, okay, I've done it. Because the worst thing would have been, Alistair, you've got a disability, but I'm not playing disability football for my country. Well, can you see my point here? So, and
yeah,
for me,
I can,
that's find the best that you can do. I believe there are pathways for people with scoliosis. Was it you said?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yes, the curvature of the spine, I believe.
I don't know, but yeah, that could be the case. That could be the case. But I think the general question is, if you have got a disability and you are playing in mainstream football, you basically just said, your body will tell you when it's time to maybe go into disability football, or if you still want to stay in it and you've got good support network around you, there's no reason why you can't stay in.
Well, precisely. If you've got the network around you, you can. And as long as you can be honest with yourself, are you doing the best that you can do while you're there? Yeah. And we can never ask for any more. And that's what's always important.
I love your little quotes. I've written 2 or 3 of them down, mate, and absolutely brilliant. Alistair, I'm going to leave it there and I'm going to pass it over to Lee. Hopefully Lee will be able to finish this off. But Lee, Rebecca's got a question about this amazing story, and do people like Alistair and within the FA do talks like this at local youth clubs? And I think this might link into what you're going to say now.
I say that in fingers crossed that you can hear me. Are we good?
I can hear you.
Okay, Alistair can't. No problem. I'm hoping other people can. So I'll carry on unless somebody puts in the chat box that they can't hear me because of the technical issues. So first of all, I just want to apologise for those technical issues. I know Alistair can't hear me. Don't worry, Dan, if you could just explain quickly to Alistair. Don't worry at this moment. I haven't got any questions for him.
Cool. Yeah. Alistair, I'm speaking for Lee at the moment. Don't worry. Everybody else can hear Lee. But me and you will just stay tight. He's the right in the chat box here.
So no, yeah, I will come on to that. I actually wrote that down around opportunities, Rebecca. So I will come on to that. I think one of the things that I just wanted to kind of say is, I mean, I've coached in the disability football pathway at the start of it, and I would say it's the most rewarding position that I've probably had. Just to give you a flavour, I remember coaching a young man. I'm not going to name names or where, but I think he was 10 or 11 years old, and he had cerebral palsy. And he had both of his legs broken and reset so he could walk properly, let alone play football. And if I say the person who, hard as nails, unbelievable, this young man used to run through brick walls. So I think in terms of coaches and opportunities, we'll talk about that. But certainly it's an unbelievably rewarding opportunity to get involved in football. Alistair, I think there's a slide that you wanted to play before we finished. Danny, just want to double check that with Alistair that he wants to play the little video.
He can't hear me.
He can't hear you. We'll move on. No worries. We'll move on to one. Now, one of the things that I just wanted to explain to everybody on the call is just around the FA Para Role Model Program. And I just want to use the word para at this moment in time because it's learning for me over recent weeks. And the word para actually is looking at parallel opportunities. So if you look, it actually derives from a Greek word around besides or alongside. So this is looking at very much parallel opportunities. And in 2019, there was a piece of work started by a colleague of ours, Paul Harrison, and I'll give his details in a minute, linking to what Rebecca said, looking at these athletes that we have, such as Alistair, and recognising the work that they've done and the inspiration that they can be for the next generation of players. So this is part of a program which you as coaches, people listening to this call, there's an opportunity for you to potentially take advantage of that. Now, there's some reasons for that. I'm not going to read through all of the stats, but in terms of the number of people who have a disability of some sort in this country, the stats are there via Sport England to be able to see. So if you wanted to utilise the likes of Alistair and the other role models that we have, 10 people started in 2019, there's another group of people that are going through this, inspirational role models that are going through the program at the moment. There's an opportunity to utilize them in a youth club, in various environments. So if you are interested in that and interested in the role model program and the inspirational story that Alistair has presented, our colleague's email address there, paulharrison2@thefa.com, is on the screen there. So please feel free to get in contact with Paul. And the last bit I just want to present really is to say to you as coaches that lots of you got involved in coaching because you fell into it or somebody pushed you into it. And it might be a thought process that you want to get involved in the pathway. Either players or coaches that might be interested in getting involved in that development pathway for players, for coaches. And there's opportunities that from grassroots football all the way to senior football for people to get involved in that. So there is an opportunity for you as coaches, as I said, and just from a personal perspective, I'm not coaching in that position at the moment, but it is definitely one of the most rewarding coaching experiences, and not just rewarding, one of the best learning experiences that I've had as a coach as well, working in a disability pathway. And another little story, I used to work in Northampton, and there was a young man who used to come to a football session, and he actually broke his leg. I think he had quite a severe learning disability. And to this day, if I see that person, and we're talking, show my age a little bit, we're talking 20 years ago, he would come up to me and give me a hug because he remembers me through playing football. So I'm just kind of saying to you as coaches, if you haven't thought about forging a pathway and you just fell into things, if it is something that you're interested in, there is a pathway for you as coaches. And the last part that I just want to wrap up with is that if you are interested in getting involved in coaching, we have a diversity and inclusion coach development team. That's us. What amazing shots we have there. All of us have got faces for radios, no doubt. So if you are interested and you want some support and interested in getting involved in coaching, I'll just leave it on the screen for 1 or 2 seconds longer. But we have a team of people there in various regions and some email addresses and some counties that we support. So I'm talking through this at the moment just to give you an opportunity to take a picture of the screen or just note the individual and that person's email address if you're interested in coaching, disability coaching. Steve, great team. Thanks very much. Steve crafted the team in its infancy. So Steve, good to hear from you and I hope you're good. It's not the last time I'm going to talk about you this evening either, Steve. So hopefully, you've got an opportunity to take that on board. And the last thing for me before I pass back to Danny and Alistair to do a final wrap up, a bit like Jerry Springer, if you're old enough, that final thought before I hand back to them. There's still 2 events that we've got planned. Steve Smith is alongside another previous colleague of ours, Les Howie. He's going to talk about his journey to becoming a chief executive officer. That's on the 18th of this month, so Monday. So that will be a great event. And Steve is another inspirational person and will tell his story and his journey from where he's come, involved in coaching and various other leadership roles. So again, there's a couple of opportunities there. And the final one is with some senior coaches who are involved in the professional game and the England setup, to include Paul Nevin and Chris Powell, who you can see there on the screen, to name a couple of those coaches, which is coming later in the month. So I just want to say before I hand back to Danny, and hopefully Alistair can hear Danny if he can't hear me. I just want to say thank you for everybody for joining. I want to say thank you to Alistair, even though he can't hear me, for the inspirational story that he has told. You can see by his face on the screen, he can't hear me, but unbelievably inspirational. So yeah, I appreciate that. Danny, I'm just going to hand back to you just to finish off. But thank you very much.
Thanks for that, Lee. Thanks for everybody that's attended. I am going to wave to Alistair because we've been talking behind the background, and he's going to just add the closing message of the evening. Thanks, everyone. Make sure you jump into the Black, English and Proud and Steve Smithy's My Journey to a CEO. And Alistair, that's my cue for you to come in, mate.
I don't know if that was a hello or a bye, but it's been fantastic, being with everyone. I've been looking at some fantastic questions, and everyone, on such a great journey. And I think whenever we talk football to any young footballer, just tell them about the journey where they'll be having the ups, the highs, they'll have the lows, but then if they hang on, they'll always get those highs again. And one thing is, they'll look back and just think, what a journey it was.
Okay.
Massive thank you.
No, thank you, Alistair. Have a great evening, everyone. And bye-bye from the Diversity Inclusion team.